Welcome back, everybody, for day two of the Scrabble Players Championship 2025 Collins Division coming from Baltimore, Maryland. Once again, I'm Charles Reinke, joined by Matthew O'Connor.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon or evening. We are getting another exciting game this time. Josh Castellano versus Winter. Winter, one of the most prolific players of all time. His game number recently hit the meme of over 9,000. Josh Castellano, the reigning champion of this event. It should be an exciting game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Matthew, I think everybody here appreciates your commentary. We're going to do a quick plug for you. You've got a Medium blog. If people like your insights, they can go check you out. You've got some very well-researched, well-thought-out, long-form Scrabble analysis posts out there. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I just tried to collect my thoughts in a place where I thought it was easily digestible. I don't have social media, so I decided to try Medium as a bit more of a place to write. And yeah, I also have my book. It's a link that's contained within the link you see under my name. It's found on MatthewJO'Connor.com. My book is called How to Play Scrabble Like Matthew O'Connor. It's 130 pages long, but it's mostly diagrams. It should be a good read for anyone who wants to get their game to the next level. But I think we're ready, and I think the players are seated, so let's switch to that.
Yeah, so as we said earlier, we've got Josh Castellano versus Winter, oddly named Jason Ubika in this view, but we know it is in fact Winter with no last name. Matt, you noted that Winter just hit the milestone of over 9,000 games of Scrabble. He's basically seen it all. And I think he actually did set the record for most consecutive weekends playing in a tournament. That was back in the earlier 2000s.
And, I think is it 2010 where Winter played every weekend of the year? I think it's 2010. I think you can see it on cross tables just every week in 2010. But I think we can start. I don't think Winter is 4 and 5. I think it's round 9 about to start. So I don't think he's 4 and 5, but we will get that fixed soon.
So again, I feel like Josh needs no introduction. He won this event last year, winning the finals 3-0 against Wasim Khatri. Winter, I don't think, has ever strongly been in contention for the finals in the Collins division, but he's always making little runs at these big tournaments, and so you can never count him out.
Yeah, I think Winter cashed in Fort Wayne in 2016. I think he got 5th place, so he definitely has some potential.
And we see it's Josh to go first. He's getting tiles out of the bag. We'll soon be underway.
Okay, Winter is 5 and 3, not 4 and 5. That didn't seem possible.
Interesting first rack for Josh here.
Yeah, I think this is
Not
one
a
of the
bingo.
times where the debate between opening short and long kind of reigns supreme. My gut is telling me short.
Yeah, I guess if we were playing short here, we'd be looking at something like FAA. It's probably the best option here. Otherwise, playing long, he would have to go for something like Feria.
What do you think about FA not setting up a vowel next to the double? It keeps a pretty good leave, too. It adds another bingo tile to your leave if a bit of imbalance.
Yeah, I think that probably would be more correct than sticking the A on for FAA, just because of the consideration of the double letter scores. The leave is maybe a little bit worse. It can go south if you draw 2 vowels, or maybe an O could tank you a little bit. But I like that idea. Downside is it's giving Winter a chance to put this on the board.
Yeah, although I think Winter had turning the 7, so I think it would have been tough to completely stop Winter with what Josh had.
Yeah, I guess what we might be seeing here is Winter wouldn't maybe not necessarily sure of Durning, and so when an option came up to not play a word he's unsure if he's just taking the sure thing.
And it looks like Winter managed to stop all of Josh's options.
And it also appears that Winter is on hold here, probably because Josh is trying to figure out if all his options are really stopped.
Yeah, Winter managed to block Josh's bingo of Aries. Very lucky.
Yeah, I think Durning in this position is better, but in this particular instance, it really worked out well for Winter.
Yeah, very lucky. And Winter will be getting 5 bonus points from his bingo, so it basically gets in line with the playable Durning.
So we know Josh's rack here as he puts his tiles back up in our view. AEEIIRS, that is sort of the downside of keeping a rise, is too many vowels could tank you. It was a poise to work out if he was able to play the 7 out of this rack, but now he's looking at just doing some vowel dump, maybe something like idea through the D of undaring. I think nothing else here makes sense. Just a vowel dump.
This is a tricky spot. I would be definitely looking for something, maybe scoring a little more, maybe something like ire to the right of undaring that scores a couple more points than idea, but I wonder if it's worth it keeping a little bit more imbalanced of a leave.
Yeah, I think that there's some merit to ire. The downside is, again, 3 vowels to 1 consonant. You do have the N to play through, the N of undaring, which makes that leave a little bit more digestible, but still not quite ideal.
Yeah, for sure. Another option might be just eyed. The AEIRS is a little imbalanced, but it's kind of undone by the floating N in undaring. When you add that, you get the very nice stem of arson, which bingos with most of the bag.
Yeah, that could be an idea. Another nice thing about IDE is it just sets up your A in addition to your S. It gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of trying to get a bingo next turn. I guess with idea, your S hook then hits the double word score, so maybe a little bit higher upside there. Downside of idea, it sets up a huge triple letter score on a board that doesn't have scoring hot spots.
Yeah, in Winter, sitting with the word alterity, he's probably seen it, and now he's probably disappointed because it is no longer there.
Yeah, good idea here from Josh. I think I agree with this. Just keep that same leave again. With, as you say, Matt, the open N on this board really makes this leave a lot better.
Yeah, I like the idea. I think the floating N, maybe even the G, is going to make a bit of a difference in terms of the quality of Josh's available options. I really like the idea of playing I'd, keeping the A this time. Unfortunately, Josh has drawn a little bit unbalanced. Doesn't look like he'll be able to get a bingo down this time. But Winter's in an interesting spot. Not quite a bingo, and he has to decide, should he play short or long? He's got laity spelled out.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea from Winter. It blocks the double doubles through the end. After Josh played I'd, that really looks like a fish. Strongly smells fishy. Doing something like this, blocking the most obvious hooks on I'd in addition to the double double through the end,
Yes.
it works out really well.
Josh left in another tough spot. Something like ow to the right of laity is very uninspiring, but I wonder what else there is. Ow, at least setting up some sort of a lane, even if he can't use it, he can often pluralize Winter's next play. For instance, if Josh plays ow, Winter might play something forming yob, and that would then be pluralizable.
Yeah, something like Drib coming back from Winter would make it easy for Josh to bingo back in response. That's sort of the looking ahead more than just the next turn, what's my opponent's most likely response to this, and what does that mean for me? That's a very good example of that type of thinking.
Yeah, for sure. Josh is probably thinking about ow and going, wait a minute, I don't have the hooks, but it is one of those spots where maybe, I don't know what else you would do. Maybe AW at least sets up your R and your S in case Winter goes elsewhere. We know Winter is likely to play something like Bridge, depending on what his available options are. Maybe even I don't know, maybe even something a little bit fishier, but we know that Winter might actually ignore the spot created by Ow. Josh does not.
Yeah, this is a tough turn for Josh. It would be so nice if there's an obvious spot to plunk the W for points. That would make his life a lot easier. There's no way to do that on this board. I mean, as Matt said, he can do ow for 15. He could maybe think about doing ow next to the G of undaring for considerably fewer points. That blatantly sets up his E at the very least. But otherwise, the options here don't look very good at all.
Yeah. One of the other things is that there doesn't appear to be a great way to play the W and two vowels off. The only words forming the W and two vowels are way, and then some that use up the E. It's not great. There's no good spot for way, so probably he's going to spend some time looking at that, but not going to generate anything good because there really isn't anything.
Yeah, there's only one E on the board, so playing the E off here wouldn't be the worst thing ever. But it really is very nice tile synergistically with the R and the S, so would definitely lean towards keeping it if at all possible. We see a different idea here playing Woe that more obviously creates lanes for sevens, but will also has kind of the same downsides as OW down below, but scores fewer points.
Yeah, Winter is probably very worried now. He might be thinking, can I use the T to make two and maybe obstruct it a little bit? The answer is no, they're not. The options probably aren't great with that. The best play with two might be something like Tribe, which is pretty uninspiring and also opens up a triple triple. So Winter's going to play Birder instead.
This was kind of a quick play. We're seeing a challenge here.
That is an interesting challenge. Isn't a birder somebody who goes bird watching?
Yes, I think that is exactly the definition.
I've heard that one. Josh is probably tilted from the undaring blocking his bingo options.
So we're going to see +5 again for Winter here. He's now gained 10 points on Josh's challenges. This play was made very quickly. I feel like Winter maybe should have spent a little bit more time on this turn, but I think this is, other than opening up the triple triple with a marginal, sub-marginal tile like the B, this play does a lot of things right.
Yeah, I think this is another one of those spots where you can say, hey, I'm just going to score as much as I can. That's how I'm going to beat the bingos. Josh is probably pretty annoyed that his triple triple is just shy of fitting Merbane's. If the B was one over, he would be triple tripling and in a great position, but instead he's stuck with some not quite as good bingos like Smearing and Germain's, which put an S in the triple. Charles, are you worried enough about that? Would you play something like Mariners instead?
I think I would probably lean towards Mariners here. It scores the same amount of points and doesn't open things up as drastically. It's kind of interesting to note that Josh does not have. There's many 7-letter words in this rack. None of them play. He's going to be looking at an 8 here, and he actually doesn't have a ton of options. But I think I would probably go for Mariners here. It does create new bingo lines on rows 2 and 4. While not doing something crazy like putting an S in a triple triple line.
Yeah, I think this is one of those spots where Josh is going to be a little bit behind no matter what he does. And maybe smearing looks like, hey, I'm going to take some variance, but the S in the triple lane like that is really volatile. It's usually better to open some slightly more marginal spots when you're behind. And I think Mariners would have been a slightly better choice for that reason.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Matt. Josh's thinking here is probably just introduce a lot of variance. Now there's two open triple triples. There's a little bit more activity going on this board, which maybe he feels like he's at an advantage in a game like that.
Yeah, and maybe he's thinking that the board will kind of die. It'll kind of shift to the right and only be on the right if he plays something like Germains or even Mariners. Whereas with smearing, the left is going to be open too. Unfortunately for him, Winter will have a choice of a couple different bingos on the triple. He's got the anagram set Vitrages and Vergates. They likely will be his best options. There's no triple triple, although I think we might see Winter spend some time looking for it because he does have the blank.
Yeah, this would be a turn. Winter's played this game very quickly up to this point, so he's got plenty of time to iterate through this blank, see what he's got. I mean, the B here is not playing nicely with the G and the V, but he's still at least got to probably iterate through that one as well, because getting a triple triple here it wouldn't be game winning, but it would be very close to it.
Yeah, Josh with the X to breathe some life into his game. He doesn't know it yet. Winter will be playing some sort of bingo here.
And it's kind of interesting to note that S looks very tempting. It looks like it should create a million bingos. It's only Vitrages and Vergates in that spot. He has to find it with the I. It looks like he is setting it up, so nicely spotted by Winter, but he doesn't
Josh
have.
is Josh is probably hoping that whatever Winter does with that S makes Exomes score a lot more. Unfortunately, this one will not.
So we're going to get the blank cam here. We're hopefully going to see an I. Indeed, it is an I, so nicely spotted by Winter, correctly determining there's no available triple triples or better plays than this.
Yeah, Josh is probably a bit crestfallen at the fact that Exomes is not available. It was unlikely to stay, but there was a way for it to suddenly score almost 100 points that also did not materialize.
Yeah, if Winter's bingo had placed vowels slightly differently, this would be a completely different game. Instead, I mean, I think Josh still has a decent consolation prize. He can just plunk down EX under smearing or something like that and score decently with the X while still keeping bingo letters. So it's not over yet. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh is able to get a bingo as soon as next turn.
Yeah, for sure. Imagine a much different game if Winter's Bingo was something like Sackatons. We would start to see Exomes for 90 some points instead of Josh has to play X. Luckily for him, he does have the O to form XO, making this a really nice choice, but it is going to be an uphill battle from here.
Yeah, a lot of actually this play has a lot of upside because he has the O. He also has the M for mem. So if things don't work well for his draw next turn, he still has a guaranteed. I could count it out exactly, but 30-something point play waiting for him to keep him going in this game.
Yeah, Winter now having a little bit of an imbalanced rack, maybe a little bit of a red herring in the non-word heatable. I don't think he's going to try it, but I would probably have to think about it for a sec to dismiss it in my head.
Yeah, that is a believable word, but he's probably going to correctly recognize that he doesn't need to bingo here to be in really good shape in this game, so it's kind of unwise at this point to try something like that you're not sure of.
Winter is playing Heed. I like this choice. It turns the X, which takes an O, into nothing, and it's also his highest scoring choice, so I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, this does everything he wants. Blocks exo, scores points, gets rid of two of the E's, keeping one, and actually keeping about as good bingo letters as he could hope to keep on that turn.
The only other idea I had was something like lead in, which keeps the H as a bit of insurance. AEL could turn into seven annoying one pointers, EH cannot. But I like the choice of heat as well.
So Josh has drawn things that look like bingo letters, but does not have a playable bingo on this turn.
Yeah, this is another frustrating turn where the bingo of Hemiolas doesn't quite fit. The best options here might be Ab-Ohm or Ab-Mo. Unfortunately, Winter has drawn Flaperon, which is going to fit unless Josh makes a pretty suboptimal move, I think.
Right, he does not have anything really good through that eye that I'm seeing. There's his most obvious plays are through the B, as you mentioned, Matt, Ab-Ohm and Ab-Mo, keeping a very synergistic LES. Although maybe on this board with few S hooks, maybe slightly less likely to work out, but still a very nice set of letters.
Yeah, I think Ab-Ohm is hard to say no. It scores a lot of points and leave some letters for bingos that might not get touched depending on what Winter has. There's also Ab-Mo, which makes it a little bit harder to use the row two through the I and birder for a nice triple letter double word combo.
It looks like Josh is going for Ab-Ohm here. I think that maybe this has slightly more upside for him. It puts the M in the triple line for bingos rather than the O. Just a little bit of extra upside to make chances higher that he gets like a nice 80-point bingo, something like that.
Yeah, I love the idea behind Ab-Ohm. There are outs for things that end in things like INE. Winter, unfortunately, has Flaperon for Josh's winning chances. Pretty unfortunate event. It was going to be hard to make a good play that blocked it.
Yeah, and I think in Josh's shoes, you're not trying to block bingo lines with the game the way it is. So this is just kind of a nice play by Winter, playing it quickly, and that really ramps up his bingo chances or his winning chances as he's now up by about 150.
And Josh having his wonderful option of zipline blocked for 60 some points.
Oh yeah, that would have been a very nice little play there. Actually, retaining the S, it would be even nicer if it bingoed at zip lines. That would have been a nice 100-pointer to get him back in the game. But instead, does not really have a ton of. The Z's not doing a whole lot on this board, Matt. Maybe do you think about keeping it one more turn, see if it develops, or I don't know, do something like
I think
ZE? It's hard to say.
I think he needs to sit on the Z actually, because I think his standout option is pluralizing Flaperon, and the only way to do that and touch the triple word is by maintaining the Z. He can play something like Spline, which gives him a chance at IZE bingos on top, but also if that gets blocked, he has another lane for sevens, and nothing's very likely to work, but I think Spline might be his best chance.
Yeah, that's actually a really nice play. The Flaperon, I mean, it sucks for Josh that Flaperon scored so many points, but it does create new bingo lines. Playing Spline then creates new bingo lines on a completely separate part of the board. And that would probably be his ticket to getting back in this game, is hitting multiple bingos or maybe one big IZE bingo in those spots.
Yeah, Josh is playing Zell. He probably wants to try to draw bingo. I can see why he's doing that. He could easily hit something like splines and flaperons and make it pretty close.
Yeah, again, he's sort of at the mercy of his draw here. Needs some vowels to make it work. Meanwhile, Winter didn't have great letters, but he's making the most of them here with a play of Kino scoring 38 points. This is a huge amount of points. It doesn't really address any of the spots on the board, I guess specifically Flaperons, but it's really keeping the scoring pressure up. And I think he's happy to take this suboptimal leave to score that many points.
For sure, I do worry a little bit that it's harder to maybe make any sort of logical play that blocks flapperons at this point. I don't know if there were any good options, but I would be thinking of things like OU to at least make it so that you don't ever have to think about flapperons again. That's one of the nice things about having a lead. You can afford to maybe take some, as in the words of Ozzy Osbourne, paranoid blocking plays. It might have worked out a little bit better, but this time Josh has a bingo, but it does not form flapperons, so he will end up not getting hit too hard.
Yeah, so the draw did work out for Josh, although maybe not exactly how we wanted. Bingo with flaprons would get him a lot closer to being in this game. It looks like Winter is going to donate 5 points back to Josh as a thank you for previous challenges.
Yeah, Josh will be getting a little bit of a rebate, so to speak. Still going to be an uphill battle, though. It's getting harder and harder to find a place to bingo now, so I'm a little bit worried about his chances. That said, nothing was very likely to work. Even just one bingo was not going to be enough.
Yeah, and this is actually the point where I feel like Josh's winning chances are contingent on drawing something involving flapperons. And so if Winter had decided to block that, Josh's winning chances here they're minimal now, but they might be close to zero if flapperons wasn't available.
Yeah, for sure. I think Winter in his head has to be thinking that that's the only way for Josh to come back. Even something like just PU for 15 is an excellent choice. It's already keeps a wonderful lead, but I think even though Winter has the S blocking flapperons, going to be absolutely critical. It's very obviously the only spot to come back.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing you might be thinking about is bingos, eights ending in Z. There's not a whole lot of those. They can kind of discount that pretty quickly.
Yeah, maybe Josh will luck into something like solo nets or barrow mets, a lamb tree hybrid in Russian mythology, a fun word.
Yeah, that is definitely everybody should read the Wikipedia article about that one. It's got some pretty wild diagrams.
Yes. But Winter, it's got a couple different choices. Otik is probably a little bit too risky at this score. I think, yeah, PU is a much safer option. I think this is the idea here. With flapperons being the best way for Josh to come back, I think PU is very logical.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Keeps a good leave, does what he needs to with the board. If Josh goes a little bit haywire trying to open up new bingo spots, it's very possible that Winter just bingos in those new spots. But we see Josh has not really drawn bingo letters at all. He's got the J, the W, and the G. And again, sort of like what he was dealing with the Z earlier, there's not really a natural place for the J to go on this board. He can play it, but any J play would involve keeping CG probably, unless he does something like jogs, which keeps WC. So it feels like it's going to be at least a couple more turns before he even is close to having bingo letters.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is one of those spots where if I'm in Josh's shoes, I'm looking for jog and jow, and you might think something better than say jog for jogs or jows for 28 exists. It doesn't really exist here. Josh is going to have to make a relatively sad play and just hope for something better next time.
Yeah, I think Josh's highest scoring options involve putting the W next to Diplons. You could do something like Watt, but that keeps JCG. Doesn't do anything for the board, really. Not a whole lot of upside there. In other board positions, there might be some merit to keeping the J, but here it's just a total anchor on his bingo chances.
For sure, although I wonder if maybe something like Watt to the right of Diplons, hoping that your next play is Joe, and then hoping to eventually hit a bingo. When you're this far behind, there's such few options that you start to string together multi-turn sequences like that as your best chance.
Yeah, and I actually also don't see any good ways to set up the J. The triple letter scores are somewhat inaccessible here. There's and the rest of his tiles are so inflexible with the CGW together. It's really hard to see what he would be able to do in that regard.
Yeah, definitely a tricky situation, a tough situation. Josh has faced a lot of almost bingos and not quite, and poor timing, and he's behind because of that. He's actually done a pretty good job getting through the clunk, but I'm sure it's very tilting to be put in all these not quite perfect situations where you have to make a pretty annoyingly sad choice.
We also see Josh's clock running down a little bit. He's down under 8 minutes. There's still a lot of tiles in the bag. And Winter is sitting pretty with tons of time on his clock to figure out this game. So another thing working against Josh here.
For sure. I don't hate the idea of Jows. CGET is not great, but it is better for bingoing than keeping the J. Josh is probably thinking, I have to hit something. Maybe I'll hit eructing into the U. I don't know. He has to try something. It also might leave Winter with relatively poor choices in terms of things that open nothing or block something.
Yeah, it looks like Winter does have Soviet set up right now through the E of Zell. I don't think that should be his idea on this turn. Just putting out floaters for eights for no reason isn't that would be a way to accidentally let Josh back into this game. So I would like to see a more closed off play here, even if he sacrifices some points to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I think something like Vi has a lot more of an argument to it. It keeps relatively flexible tiles. You can find a way to score even if you hit more consonants, because at the very least you're hitting Scott with flaperons, and Vi blocks some unlikely but available possibilities through the Z and the E. Winter also has the S's, which prevents Josh from making a sneaky reopening after Vi with Vi's, something like Vi's, which sets up Ivy's. And there
Yeah,
are
very good point. Yeah, Winter with the two S's, it just greatly limits Josh's chances to do sneaky S setups or anything like that.
I don't hate the idea of Vi Winter also having the S's, which stops an opening involving pluralizing if. In this sort of spot, there's kind of two marginal bingo lanes. It's one of those things where it doesn't hurt to just block one of them. Winter's going with Soviet, though. This does seem a little bit risky to me.
Yeah, I think this scores nicely and keeps a pretty good leave, but there's the downside is you might just be giving Josh a bingo here. Josh has drawn the blank, so a little bit more life here than he did have one turn ago.
It's a tough spot. The only 8 I can see off the top of my head is Turgency, which does not play. That might be the only one total with his rack and a blank, and it is. He's going to decide between something like Cutie, which looks pretty nice. I don't hate Cutie because he does need to score in order to win, and he might be able to pull something off with ER as a backup bingo lane, especially now that he has the blank. He's down to thinking about not great choices, and he does at least have ER and the U in PU as two very unlikely but possible spots.
Yeah, that's definitely if he's thinking his most likely chances for bingoing are through the U, it's very possible that a bingo through the U is only going to score about 65 points. Quite likely not going to be enough to actually win him this game. Whereas doing something like a 2-turn sequence with QT and then playing your marginal bingo could get him right back into this game, especially if Winter starts sacrificing points to block, or we see he's around the queue. If he starts sacrificing points to unload the queue, Josh could still pull this one out.
Charles, what do you think about something like Gouty? It scores a little bit less, but it sets up bingos with the Y, and with the contents of the bag, it might actually be pretty tough to come up with a good block from Winter's perspective.
Yeah, that is actually an interesting idea. It not only sets up the Y, but also sets up the T, which is maybe a little bit more likely you might get like 70 to 80 point bingos hitting the double word. That is an idea. Uh, Downside is it scores considerably less than Cutie. It sort of banks your chances on getting a higher scoring bingo.
Yeah, after QD, I think there's a good chance Winter plays two tiles and scores as much as he can. Maybe Winter will play something like Qua through the U and PU, and then I think Josh's options will be pretty limited. But really don't know what else he's supposed to do. He does have an outside chance of something with ER, so he's definitely not dead yet.
Yeah, and the downside again of Cutie is those new lanes for bingos that we thought Winter shouldn't be opening up. Those go away after Cutie. You're scoring 40 points, but all of a sudden the the upside of bingos on this board it went up a little bit, and now it's just going right back down with a play like that. So again, Cutie does seem right to me. I think winning sequences for Josh involve doing these high scoring sequences, but there's a significant downside to this, and it's still, I would say, probably not likely to work out.
For sure, I don't think anything is terribly likely to work out. When I'm in these situations, I like to generate the high scoring choices like Cutie, but I also try to make sure I generate plays like Gouty, things like that that open the board, often leave some sort of outside chance. It might be a little tough given the score line with Gouty. If Winter can play something with the triple using three tiles, it would be really tough. But as it stands with Winter's unplayable for a big scorer Q, it might actually be pretty tough to come back, especially because QATS and ifs could lose to a bingo with the Y. So Gouty might actually give Josh a solid chance.
Yeah, I think in this specific situation where Winter has the Q and is going to be worried about it, Gouty maybe does work a little bit better, or at least works differently, has a higher chance of working out than if Winter just had a normal rack and was able to proceed normally through it.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do if I was Winter after Gouty. I might just play something like QUAT through the U and PU, or QAT on top of Soviet. That would at least leave one in the bag, although it would give Josh some outs to hit things. Josh looks like he's spelling out Cutie. I like this idea. It probably makes him a little more likely to win after the bingo, but it makes the bingo less likely. But I think it still might win more often because of how much it scores.
Yeah, in this situation where you're faced with a 90-point deficit, it's really, really hard to turn down a 40-point play keeping the blank. So I'm actually a little bit surprised this didn't happen quicker, because Josh is going to be running out of time to sort of iterate through his available plays or bingos with the blank. I always like to have a lot of time on hand when I'm dealing with a blank.
And Winter's actually in an interesting spot because he has a way to block both of the biggest bingo lines while playing off QA. He can actually play Kadi with Heed, which would empty the bag. Winter's going with QAT. I think that'll probably be enough to outrun almost everything.
Yeah, at this juncture, he's probably just trying to outrun. If he wanted to do that a little bit better, he probably could just play Cask through the U of Undaring, score a bit more, get rid of that C.
Yeah, Josh is going to be left with a spot where maybe he thinks he can fish for something, although it is going to be tough. I don't know if there's any way to fish for an S and hit something through the ER and through a lane you open. Maybe hit something like Augias and something through ER if that exists. Definitely going to be very tough, especially given if you play JA. Winter can play something like Beetle, Betel, and outrun anything, even if that does leave some stuff. And Augia is unlikely to be enough, but Josh, no great options. Probably going to have to give this one up pretty quickly.
Yeah, something like JA seems sort of like the natural thought here. Open up a spot to hit your bingo. unduplicate the A's, and maybe if you determine there's something through ER, it gets a little bit better. But once you look at the unseen pool, the high likelihood that Winter has the B makes that unlikely to work out. And we see Josh do something we hadn't come up with, although he did need to make that play quickly. He's playing Meg, setting
Yeah,
up his A.
I think he's fishing for something like a boolia. I think it can be blocked, but only by something like sec and megs, which is at least a little bit counterintuitive. He does draw it. Unfortunately, Winter, instead of even blocking, can also just bingo out with lectures.
Yeah, that's maybe. I don't know if Josh had figured all this out, but the thing is, if he draws a boolia with the B, it necessitates Winter bingoing out. So that's actually not a plan that would work.
Maybe a boolia with the L is a little bit harder to deal with. I think Winter would eventually have figured out something like megs and sec.
Right. Yeah. It was with the S in hand. It was quite simple to block. Looks like Josh's clock is still running. But I think they're finalizing the score.
Yeah, I think Winter probably hit the start Josh's clock thing instead of the stop button. But I don't think it matters. I don't think overtime would count anyways. I think that the game officially ended when Winter hit his clock.
Let's switch over to the overhead mic. See what they have for the
I was
postmortem.
thinking if I draw the S, I can play Sawari, but you just have tubercle here.
What cruelist? I don't
Huh?
see tubercle.
Yeah, I guess like since I'm
Cruelist
completely,
is good too, right?
yeah. Since I'm completely lost, I might need to rely on you missing something.
That's a good. That's a good strategy.
But yeah, Well, I think this is my best attempt because I have the A's and there's like stuff I draw and maybe I don't know if you screw it up big time or play a phony or I can bingo making mega and then
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't have
Win.
the bonus, I'm just playing
Yeah, you're probably-
SCC to
yeah.
block and hoping that.
yeah.
Well, I know your
know.
tiles, so
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
Exactly. Yeah.
hoping that you can't find a 6 vowel 2U
Yeah.
to a bonus through the
Probably
U
not.
there.
Winter got this one. So wait, what did I? Oh, we are? Okay, cool. What's my rack?
Pick your name in or two.
There's no bingo with T, C, B, R. Seems reasonable.
514373.
Yes.
All right, we got some info there. It sounds like Josh knew his position was sunk. So good win for Winter here. Big win over, I guess, what we would consider one of the top contenders in the field. But that was a really nicely done game by Winter.
Yeah, that was a good job by Winter. He found the bingos that he needed to find. He got maybe a little bit lucky that Undaring blocked all spots for Aries, but he did a lot with what he had. Charles, you do Twitch a lot. You run this game where people can actually type the answers to an aerolith-like puzzle in the Twitch chat and score points. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Ancient Cosmographer. If you're on Twitch, make sure to follow. I've created a game called Infiniwords, which is basically just a clone of Aerolith, but you solve anagrams collaboratively in the Twitch chat. So we get a good group of anagrammers all solving words together. It's a really good vibes, a really good time. See some amazing words get solved. And if anybody else is on Twitch and wants to run it themselves, you can check out infiniwords.com and download it for yourself.
I think it's a lot of fun. Sometimes we do crazy things like the 15s, and most of us struggle, except for I think Zach Ansell and Noah Walton are pretty good at the 15s, anyways, even though they're 15.
Right. Yeah, I think we've got Zach Ansell who has studied the 15s for the explicit purpose of getting 100% on aerolith quizzes. So that's a creative use of time, but we appreciate the effort. So with that said, I think we're going to be taking a little bit of a break here while we finalize the next matchup. But don't go anywhere. There's a lot more Scrabble to come here from Baltimore, Maryland, the 2025 Scrabble Players Championship.